Hi, everyone. I'm Kyler from the Content Mix, and I'm excited to be here with Louise McFetridge, Head of Content and Digital PR at Greenlight. Louise has always had a passion for words. With a background in journalism and creative writing, it was only natural that she went on to a career in digital marketing. And as someone who understands the power of language, Louise has been fostering positive change at Greenlight for the past 8 years. Known for producing integrated transformational strategies across the entire digital space, Greenlight is a UK-based full-service digital and commerce agency made up of 170 people. And we're excited to learn more about Louise's career and how this love for writing has allowed her to make an impact at Greenlight, both in terms of marketing success and team motivation. So, Louise, thank you so much for joining us today on the Content Mix.
Thank you for having me.
So I gave you this introduction based on some research I did and just looking more at your profile, in which made me really excited for today's chat. But I also wanted to know if you could just introduce yourself in your own words. So just tell us a bit more about where you're connecting from, where you're from in general, and also what's your connection to content marketing in Europe.
Sure. So as you just said, I'm Louise, Head of Content and Digital PR at Greenlight Digital. We're based in King's Cross in London. We're a full-service digital and commerce company working across a huge, diverse range of sectors with a number of well-known brands, probably quite a few that you'd have heard of. They're based in Europe, but also we have clients that have got a global presence as well. Mm-hmm. I've been working in digital marketing for 11 years. Okay. And have been working at Greenlight for 8. And before working at Greenlight, I was working for a small startup company and kind of doing a mixture of everything, wearing lots of different hats, as you kind of do in a startup company. And that was where kind of my introduction to digital began, where I was looking after search engine marketing. I was looking after sort of what was very much link building back in sort of 2010, 2011, okay. Whereas what would be probably described as black hat now, but very much what I was doing then. And also a team of copywriters and designers, and I was wearing the account manager hat. I was kind of doing a bit of everything really. Fundamentally, though, my main job was copywriting. So that's how I kind of came into digital, because as you said in the introduction, I started off in journalism. So that's really where my career began.
Yeah, I really wanted to dive into that part too, just because it's very similar to like experience that I've had, kind of, I didn't come out, thinking I was going to do content marketing. I'm a linguist. I, started as a translator, got a master's in Spanish linguistics. So kind of random, but also I feel like a lot of people in this industry, they have these interesting backgrounds. So like I said in the intro, in 2008, you received a journalism degree. And I just was curious because I feel like a lot of journalists are involved in content marketing. So I wanted to know if these studies that you did they influence your interest in copywriting? Kind of how did that transition happen?
So I was really interested in copywriting, but that came at a later date. So my love of English started at school, and very much really enjoyed writing poetry and writing stories, and that sort of saw me want to focus when I went to college and further education. And then I just had a huge love of magazines when I was a teenager, and I really imagined being a writer for those magazines. So I pursued a sort of publishing and journalism degree, and that's where I focused all of that, and that's where some of my early experience is kind of set. Working for publishing companies, working on magazines in the UK, such as Ms. Magazine, New Woman Magazine, and then went on to work for Gay Times Magazine and Scarlet Magazine. So they are kind of like more kind of started off in sort of younger teenage magazines, right, and worked my way around. And I absolutely loved that. I loved writing editorial. I loved interviewing. I loved I loved kind of basically what you're doing now, being able to like really find out something really interesting about somebody and turn that into a really interesting story.
Right.
That's when my love of writing really blossomed. But after I graduated, in 2008, we hit a recession over here. And I think a lot of people did that are similar, like are in their sort of mid-30s, in a similar background to me, felt the same way and experienced the same things. And a lot of it was trying to like pivot and understand what I could do with those skills. So I went on to do my master's because I really want to continue writing in a structured way. And that really gave me continued discipline and to continue to hone my craft, and actually got me to think outside of what I was used to, and strengthen my creativity. I absolutely loved that. And at the same time was continued writing for some of those magazines that I mentioned. So the Gay Times and Scarlet Magazine, where I continued to be like a freelancer alongside doing my master's. And then it was really like, once that was finished with, it was like, what am I going to do? How can I continue to be a writer? And then I continued doing freelancing for a little bit, and then I found this startup where I joined after my postgraduate degree, and like that was where I kind of like got through into the world of digital. I was able to use some of the skills I'd learned as a journalist, so these interview techniques, the editorial side very much kind of like lent itself quite nicely to writing editorial in the world of digital, and that's kind of where that all began. And then since leaving that startup, I joined Greenlight as a copywriter, and I've kind of worked my way up within Greenlight to now be head of content digital PR.
I love that. Like, your passion for, just English language, for example, and then led you along this way to do different things. And also I found a lot, like what resonated a lot to me was kind of the 2008 recession, right? And it's kind of a moment of crisis, and similar to what we just experienced with the COVID-19 pandemic. It caused a lot of people, like those moments are when people say, how can I pivot like what you said, pivot my skills to do something new? Because I feel like before we're living a lot, on autopilot, just kind of, I have a job, great. But then when these big things happen, although they do really suck, just to put it in clear language, they actually give us an opportunity to reflect and do different things to improve our lives. So I think that's really cool that kind of led you along this path.
Because I think in journalism and in digital marketing, like storytelling and narrative building is like a huge part of both of those things. So it was trying to find a through line to, as I said, sort of pivot my career from being in an industry that continues to, unfortunately, sort of I don't want to use the word die, but like is depleting in terms of publishing and editorial. And it was what I had always loved. So it was how I could continue to do part of that and use some of those skills and that love into a world that was obviously continuing to fall. And, I mean, that was in 2008. So we're quite a few years down the line, and it continues to be, and it's given me the opportunity to develop my career. So it was the right move.
That's awesome.
Even if it wasn't what I set out to do originally.
It's your path, right? And I think just to be clear too, like what you did your master's in was in creative writing, no? So
yes,
So which I think is also great. A lot of marketers use creative writing skills because it's all about storytelling. And I think that's really cool that you're able to, I think it's bold for people to go back to school and say, I think a lot of people will say, oh, creative writing, why would you do that? Get an MBA, do some, I don't know. People love those like hard skill, practical things. But I feel like creative writing is so important in marketing that it must play an impact on your day-to-day life.
Yeah, absolutely.
In words.
In terms of like the written word, but also in terms of communication and being able to adapt in like lots of different settings. So with your team in writing for the work that you're doing for brands, how you actually converse with brands and clients. Like everything is communication.
It is.
So it was interesting to be able, it taught, like, not just being able to sit and write doing the masters, doing the postgrad, and learning how to write kind of short stories and things, like, vast amounts of words which I'd never written before, giving me that discipline. But also, like, it's all the little techniques about being able to communicate quickly, effectively, using 5 words instead of 25 words. So all of these things were really, really useful and practical that I kind of like be able to dip into and use now.
That's awesome. And I feel like too, like, again, a lot of things you're saying resonate with me, but like in terms of like the communication factor, I think it's so important, especially now that we're all, virtually working in a lot of cases. And, a lot of things are in written communication, and, studying languages, people think, okay, you study a language and you get to use it. But I feel like you also learn so much more than that, especially the pragmatics of the language, how to communicate with different people and different cultures, which for me has been super helpful in the workplace because I work in an international environment with international clients. So being able to kind of like switch gears and just be able to know how to communicate in the most effective way for this person, based not just on, the work itself, but their culture, where they're from, etc. So it's been really fascinating to see. And it's cool to hear that, like, we can pursue our interests, that they actually have benefits in our day-to-day work.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So when I was doing research, now I want to talk a bit more about Greenlight, but when I was, researching you, I was like, wow, she's been here for, I think, over 8 years. So it must be a really cool place and a fascinating place. So you've been working there for over 8 years now. And from copywriting to marketing, content strategy, you had a lot of opportunities to apply your skills, right? From what we were just talking about, from your journalism degree, creative writing degree, to help the company grow through its content strategy. So I wanted to know what drives you as a part of the Greenlight team, and in what ways have you been able to use your love for language and storytelling to help promote the company's name and connect with its target audience?
So having been here for 8 years, I joined, so I actually joined as a temp.
Oh, wow.
So in that sort of period of time where I was looking for work, and I joined as a temp. My friend was working for the agency, and there was a need for more copywriters, and I joined, and I just fell in love with the place, with its culture. And that word culture is used a lot, but it's in everything. So not just the fact that it had like a beer fridge for a Friday or like a pool table, but actually it was embedded in like everything that was about Greenlight, in the people and in their morals and ethos and the clients that they were working with and all of that. So it was very exciting. And due to continued growth with the agency at the time, I then joined as a full-time copywriter. And then an opportunity came up for me to be a lead copywriter. So the lead copywriter went off actually traveling to Spain. And then I took on her role and was able to progress from there, really. And in each aspect of those roles, obviously, as a copywriter, I've been able to very much use my love of language and what I learned. But I've continued to be able to do that, even as head of a department, and not necessarily doing as much of the production myself. So the role kind of pivots into being much more sort of like admin driven, resource driven, financial driven. But it also, I've had the opportunity to use like storytelling and language to previously build the Greenlight tone of voice, and to work on our own marketing material, our own website copy, and being able to throw all of that experience that I've developed over the years for other brands on our own brand, which was a hugely exciting project. Very stressful project doing it for yourself,
right?
Doing it for the agency, but that was really fun. And then, as I mentioned to you earlier, Kyler, we're going through a merger and another rebrand. So I'll also have my foot in it again this time round, which is lovely. So it's nice to be able to still be able to use my skills for the agency, and work on like really exciting projects. Like I love tone of voice development, and love brand building. And it's really fun to be able to do that for the agency that you work for. And even if I don't always get to do it on like deliverable clients, because I have a full team that works on that.
Of course. It's so exciting too. Like I was going to ask, I had a question prepared about, because you have such a love, and passion for words. Are you able to still, incorporate that in your day-to-day role? Because I know, as you mentioned, like, moving up and kind of when you get to these managerial head of content type of roles, it's more admin. You lose the craft. You don't have much contact with the craft. So it's great to hear that you still do. But I was also wondering too, like random question, but like on the side, are you writing anywhere or like, do you write a blog? I don't know. I feel like
I just became a mum, so
congratulations.
actually my free time is not so free.
Yeah.
I haven't done for a little while, which I do miss. And I practice a lot of so when I was doing my studies, a lot of like free writing. So just being able to kind of like process thoughts or any creative ideas, or like actually being able to have a moment, like if we started to come back into the office a little bit like after the pandemic, so I get a nice bit of time at lunchtime to be able to kind of like sit and be with my thoughts, being able to just free write a little bit, and use some of those techniques from my studies, which has been like being able to see something that inspires you. So it could just be like something you're watching,
right,
while you're sort of like drinking a coffee, eating your lunch, and being nosy, like what's happening around you, and begin to kind of make a story and pre-write from that. So I use some of those techniques, but I don't do that. I don't have the time to do that as often as I would like to, and it's one of those things, like as a writer, because I still consider myself as a writer even now, even in that, and I'm not doing it every day, but it's one of those things like that when you talk to other writers and you talk to more like junior copywriters starting out in the industry, it's like read and write every day, as much as you can, and that's something that does become increasingly harder when you're in a more senior position.
For sure.
And also when you become a mum. So yeah, definitely wish I could write a lot more, but definitely relishing the opportunity to do so. And I get, actually the most recent thing I was able to really throw myself into was really interesting and rewarding. As I returned back to work, I worked on a project for our marketing team, where we submitted a load of award entries. So I got to learn lots about what the guys have been up to while I was away on maternity leave, and kind of use that creative writing to submit like a number of different award entries for the work that the guys have been doing, and we got shortlisted for a number of them and won.
Congratulations.
We won one of them. Next year we'll aim for more. But that was really nice, and that was good to be able to, like, after having sort of over a year off on maternity leave, being able to throw myself back into stuff. So definitely wish I could write a lot more. And it's just part of the progression, I guess. But it's still within like the love of writing and being able to use it. I think whilst I may not sit and write something creatively all the time, I think communication is in like the emails that you write.
Exactly.
It's in the strategy documents that you put together for clients. It's in absolutely everything. So it's just about kind of harnessing that when you're doing something that might not seem like you have the opportunity to use that creativity. It's actually you do. It's probably the way that I would try and look at things.
Yeah, that's awesome. And time is something that's so, like, we all wish we had more time. And I'm sure with, like, being a mother now and all these new responsibilities, it's a lot. So I'm sure you'll get back to the, writing more often in the future, but It's great that you're still able to have that lunch break. It's so important to have like mental health breaks as well.
Oh no, massively, especially like more so now than ever with working from home, but definitely. And I still have a book in me that I'd love to
get out.
to get out. So that's definitely something to work on in the
Exciting.
future.
Yeah. We'll keep our eyes open for that one for sure. I'd love
Please,
to read it.
yeah, hopefully.
Now, you mentioned how like you love, working on and developing tones, like a tone of voice and branding and all that, which is, I think, a really rewarding experience from my experience as well. Just being able to help a brand or a company just like personify themselves with words. But I was just wondering too, like from all the projects you've worked on, like during your time at Greenlight, which probably involved a lot of collaboration, your team, et cetera. I was just wondering if there's any like content marketing strategy in your experience that you're very proud of and why.
There are a few. So I guess so my role as head of content digital PR, I look after 3 teams. The copywriting team, so that do the kind of full production. The digital PR team, so they're sort of charged with getting coverage and links back for campaigns that we run for our clients. And the strategy team that sets about kind of the overarching strategy at the beginning of the year or at the beginning of a project, and then see everything through to execution. So I guess in my early days, very much focused on the copywriting side, and then as things have progressed over the 8 years, there's lots of projects that kind of touch on all of those, and then also have a crossover with lots of other teams within our business. So I was trying to think before we spoke. So I guess there was a project that we worked on for eBay to redefine their customer help and support pages. And we did that through like a in-depth UX research, technical SEO research, mapping all of that keyword research to new pages that we wanted to create, and then creating a full suite of content for their help and support pages. So there was help and support pages already existing on the eBay site. I don't know if you've ever set anything, never been a seller basically on eBay.
Never.
There are a load of help content for sellers and for buyers, and actually the whole experience was quite muddled. So our task was to make that clearer, make the user journey a lot clearer. A lot of the results before we started the project ended up in people ringing their phone lines, and they wanted to reduce that. So what we did was reposition the whole user experience when it came to help content, focusing on content that was relevant and useful, that they could get quick bits of information to help them with their journey. And that kind of involved, as I mentioned, the technical consultancy team in-house, the UX team, the creative teams to also think about wireframing and what the pages would look like. And then our content team to produce all of that content. And the result was, a more streamlined user experience.
That's awesome.
So that was, I guess, one for the brand itself, and two for like actually how many moving parts there were, and feeling like the end result was hugely useful. So that's kind of one example of a project that I've loved working on over the years. We also worked with a company called How to Greeting.
Okay.
And they are a cruise company, and they sell voyages and experiences. So going to do the Northern Lights is one of them. And what we did after working with them for a few years was to create a 360 video experience that was truly immersive. So giving prospective passengers the chance to get a taster of what life is like on board a How to Greeting cruise. And namely, in this case, we wanted to showcase the Norwegian coastline cruise, setting sail from Bergen and then taking in like the picturesque views of Tromsø and Trondheim, stopping to experience like a little fishing village and what that whole experience was like, and also then taking into the sights of the mountains along the coastline and crossing the Arctic Circle. So there's so much to kind of sell when you're wanting to get more people to pick up and be interested in going on one of these cruises. And for a long time, we worked on the copy and selling those packages, but and that definitely got people to the pages. That definitely helped with from a SERP perspective. But we really wanted to kind of once they got there, sell a more immersive, experiential view of what it would be like to kind of, I guess, give them no reason not to want to jump on board.
Right.
So that was really fun, hugely fun actually. It gave me the opportunity to go to Norway and do a recce, and then we then followed up with a video crew that then went to go and film everything, and then we used that as sort of on-page content for the brand as part of the conversion tactic, but also we used it as PRable material that we could drive links to and to further kind of increase uplift for the keyword search to get more people to convert as well. So that was a huge fun project it's got to be about 5 years ago. But it was one that kind of sticks with me because it's a hugely memorable experience.
I bet.
There's loads more, but I can stop.
No, I was just going to say super, we could talk about those two projects, I'm sure, in much further detail because it seems awesome. But I think, something that I'm pulling out from it is this whole idea of when it comes to copywriting and content marketing, this whole idea of curiosity. I feel like we get to, we're so privileged in the work that we do, especially when you're working in an agency, because you're working with all these different brands. So with eBay, for example, you all had to learn, and I'm sure you've learned a lot in that experience of working with so many different teams about UX experience and all these different aspects that you probably would never even think of. But also with this whole Northern Lights cruise, Norway experience, you learn probably so much, not just about the cruise line and the company itself, but about Norway. And I think that's a privilege that we have in content marketing.
I think in content marketing, and there's certainly definitely in any role within content marketing, but how much you learn, you become a mini expert. In a very short space of time, in a very focused space of time when you're a copywriter as well. From writing about the Norwegian coastline to writing about help support content for eBay to we work with a law firm where we did a digital PR campaign and a hub all focused on women's health around reproductive health and understanding women's sentiments around reproductive health and the cost of it and how many misconceptions and how much misinformation is out there. And then you you have to do so much research and absorb it all in order for you to be a mini expert for that period of time that you're focused on that campaign, and that stays with you as well. All of that, I guess it gets pushed down the more you learn and the more you write, but it always stays with you. And I think that's what's quite fascinating, the amount of kind of qualitative research that you have to do in order to write with conviction. As a copywriter and in content marketing is really interesting.
For sure.
It's the bit that there's so much about it that's quite interesting, but that from my copywriting route, I guess that's the bit that I really enjoy.
That's awesome. Now, I guess curiosity is a skill that we could say, this passion for learning is something that we think is important. I think both you and I, when it comes to being a marketer nowadays, but do you have any other skills that come to mind that you would say would be super essential for a marketer in today's world?
Curiosity, communication, but also active listening. So you can be so focused on trying to get your message across and be really set on what you think is really important as a marketer, but it's really important to stop and take a moment to actively listen to what the client is saying, because they can send you a brief and they can tell you what they wants, but often it requires active listening and then asking the right questions. And it's that curiosity bit as well, that like to really kind of delve into the unsaid to really kind of deliver your best work. And I think that's the thing where everything's so quick and fast paced, and you want to kind of deliver, as efficiently as possible and effectively as possible. But I think to do that, you kind of need the curiosity, the communication, but also like to be a really active and effective listener.
Awesome. I agree 100%. It's so important. Now we're moving along the lines now of recommendations and, your things that you want to recommend to the audience. So I want to dive a bit further now, or deeper, we could say, into more recommendations from you. So I always ask this question and I always love the answers I get because they're so diverse, but are there any daily habits that you would attribute to your success that you could share with the audience?
Daily habits? Yeah,
I'm sure all your daily routine has changed now as a mother.
It has, but I think the thing that stays with me is, so rather than doing a to-do list every morning, like I'm a traditionalist when it comes to like lists and managing to-do lists, and I know book and pen really can't be beaten in my mind. I mean, there's so many apps out there.
I have one here, so I'm on the same page.
I don't have it with me, but it's and
you feel lost, right?
Yeah.
You're like, where is it?
But I mean, we use things like Trello and Smartsheets and resource management tools and all of those things, which are hugely important. But I like to create a to-do list at the end of the day that kind of like puts a kind of pin in my thoughts to be able to try and switch off, because it's really hard, especially with the working from home thing. Everything bleeds into like if you don't have your own like separate space for working and have a delineation there, like I think you can end up working all the time. And sometimes it is hard to switch off, but I try and create a sort of to-do list and put a pin in my thoughts at the end of each day. That gives me kind of a summary of what was completed, what I kind of need to focus on, like the sort of like, there's like I think it's called like bullet journaling, where you can like just keep it short and sharp, and then the next day you've got some focus. So you're not kind of opening up your laptop first thing in the morning and be hit with lots of emails and go into overwhelm. So that's kind of my way of trying to get a bit of focus, and also try and create that separation between work and family life now that as I mentioned, being a mum, I need to be able to do that. So and I think, but it's not just for me with family life. I think it's probably
I was going to say anyone. I love that because I do that the same thing. Like I make sure I take 5 minutes before the day ends, work day ends, and just write down everything, like kind of reflect, look at everything. Okay, this is what I need to do tomorrow, and then I just shut the book, and then
I think it's important.
Yeah. And finally I just moved. So like finally I have like a room that's just an office. So it's just so nice to be able to like close that door, and because I'm fully remote. So it's just nice to leave the laptop there and then just continue with my life in other spaces within the house. So it's so important.
And if you don't have that, like a lot of my team we're sort of hybrid at the moment, working from home and coming into the office. We're beginning to open, but it's all sort of trying to manage the numbers in the office. So a lot of my team are still working from home at times, but they are perhaps junior and living at home with their parents, or they are in a house share and they don't have as much space. So they may be working from their bed or from...
Which is hard,
or a desk that they've put up in their bedroom because of the period of time that we were working from home. So it's just those... I think it's really important to be able to draw a line somewhere for your mental health and to be able to breathe and have space away from it, because then you can bring your best self the next day with focus. So
and even like for us, like we closed our office, and I'm in a different country, so clearly I'm not going to an office, but we've done like we've collaborated with Croissant, which is like a co-working app that you can use in different cities throughout Europe and North America. And it's been awesome because I have one like right across the street. And even though I have that space, like you said, it's so important to like, I went there yesterday for 2 hours and I'm just able to like change scenery, move out of the house. And it's so important. So even if people that don't have the opportunity to have a home office and stuff like that, there's always like the cafe down the street, which is even just so helpful just to switch it up.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Just like getting out and having a walk at lunchtime, and it's that change of space and change of scenery. I think
It's
is
so
really
important.
important.
Now, along those lines, you mentioned some tools like Trello that you recommend. I'm sure you use for organizational purposes as well. But are there any other like apps, tools, platforms, or books that you would recommend? It can be something personal, marketing related.
Um, I like to use. I got in like a meditation app when I was pregnant. So like to help with that kind of state of mind. That's a personal thing, but I think that can be
Important. Which one was
definitely
it?
useful.
Which app?
So I used Calm.
Yeah.
And also one that was very focused on pregnancy when I was
Cool.
pregnant during the pandemic. But really, I never really got into it before. I think there's probably for lots of people during the pandemic being able to find some space and focus, and
exactly.
whether that was like at home or if over here we were able to go for walks during, and just being able to spend some time doing that. I think that's really good for like, it's just about like freeing your mind because it can get quite cluttered with everything that's going on. And then books wise, I saw that you mentioned books on the list before, and I was thinking there are so many books out there that are good to read and offer something new and interesting on like content or content marketing, and so many that I have still yet to read even now. So what I think is kind of like more important almost is to understand what other agencies are doing, what other businesses are doing, what other brands are doing, and also what other marketers are doing, and saying, so what at in my team at Greenlight, we host a regular sort of round table for everyone to join from the team to bring with them a piece of content to share and discuss. It could be good, it could be bad, it could be an insight from the industry, an article or a blog or a piece of thought leadership that really resonates with them, and to bring it to the table and discuss, because busy schedules and busy workloads, you may not be able to consume all the content out there. So bringing it to the table and making sure everyone's got a unique piece to talk through, and we take a view on it from a creativity perspective or a strategic perspective, the quality of it, how it's performed. So we run it through BuzzSumo and Majestic, the two other tools, to bring back to your tool question, to look at performance and kind of get an assessment on lots of different things from a qualitative and quantitative perspective. And I think that is a really good way that brings it back to what we do in the department, and also keeps us kind of like understanding what's happening with our competitors and other brands out there, and discussing them as a team. And it really kind of helps them with like it's sort of like mini audits, which we would do for clients with their own brands, but kind of doing that on an industry level.
That's awesome.
That's something that we like to do across the content and digital PR department. And we look at it from a creativity perspective and also that kind of PR perspective as well. Whether it's newsworthy, how they've gone about that. Sometimes we're not sure, and we spend ages trying to work out actually how did that work for them. And it's and it gets lots of discussions, and sometimes we agree, sometimes we disagree. But that's always the good bit. We just keep kind of keeping our finger on the pulse of lots of good websites and blogs out there. So Content Marketing Institute, Contently, Copy Blogger, SEO Moz, as I mentioned. And then from a search perspective, we're very much connected, like at Greenlight, we're very much connected to the SEO side of things. So then we look at Ahrefs, and we look at Search Engine Roundtable, Search Engine Journal, like loads of the other ones as well. So they're kind of within our back pocket to always be looking at and seeing what latest, I guess, even like what the latest updates are that we need to be aware of, and thought leadership. And that's probably, rather than, because there are so many books that I need to read, that's probably that's probably like where our main focus is with the team, and it's part of our kind of day-to-day part of our kind of,
and I love that. Like, I think again it ties back to that idea of curiosity and making sure that you're reading and learning, and that whole idea of like a brainstorming idea sharing session and like looking at content out there now. It's so cool that you foster that in your workplace.
I think it's important not to just be so focused on what you're doing. Like it's the awareness of what else is happening around you, whether it's good or bad, because you can take learnings from it all. So
exactly.
That's something that we've had in place for a good number of years now within the departments of the creativity review, and that like sharing mentality. It gets everyone across the teams like talking, especially when we get new people join the team as well. It's a really nice place to kind of like learn about each other and share as well. So that's probably the best approach.
For sure. That's awesome. Well, unfortunately, we're coming to the end of the interview. I seriously,
I feel like I could chat forever.
I know, right? I was like, this could go on. Maybe there'll be a part 2 in the future. But this is really interesting, this to learn from your experience, and just, I don't know, I feel like it must be great to work with you at Greenlight, because it seems like you really care about, your employees as well and their well-being, and just allowing them to be creative, because you know how that is as a writer.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you have any final takeaways or parting advice that you could share with our audience from today's chat? I know it's a hard question.
It is a hard question. I think I'm stumped now, because I feel like I've shared lots of little nuggets already. But
I know it's hard to kind of wrap it with a bow.
It's hard to wrap it up, but definitely going back to the communication, curiosity, and active listening. I think those are the 3 things that, as a marketer, I think it's really important, and as as people as well, like just from a kind of like empathetic perspective, and thinking about like culture and what everyone's been going through over the last sort of like almost 2 years.
Yes,
in some cases. So it's just being able to take a step back and breathe, and that curiosity can lead to excitement, and that excitement can lead to like not listening properly and not really understanding. So I would definitely say those are my that's like my key takeaway, and something that I like my team to kind of like take a moment and try and do as much as possible. So I guess I'd share that with everybody again. It's a repeat of what I already said, but I can't think of anything else more pertinent. So.
I mean, we touched upon many different points today, so it's hard to kind of do that, but I love that advice. I think it's great. And I know that we connected on LinkedIn, so that's like the way we got in touch with you. But are you active anywhere else besides LinkedIn? If someone was listening to this and wanted to reach out about
LinkedIn is the best place it's the best place to catch me.
And it's just your name as is, no? Louise McFetridge.
Yeah, exactly. And please do, if anyone would like to.
Well, I want to thank you so much again for taking the time to join us today and for sharing all this great insight with me and also with the audience. So thank you, Louise. And I also want to thank our audience for listening or watching. We also have the video on YouTube as well. But as always, for more perspectives on the content marketing industry in Europe, check out veracontent.com/mix for more episodes. And keep tuning in to the podcast for more interviews with content experts like Louise. And maybe there'll be a part 2 of this chat. You never know. Anyways, we'll see you all next time. So thank you so much. And thank you again, Louise, for your time.
Thank you. Cheers. Thank you.